Let me clear my throat. I was about to do it the way they did it in the song. That was a hit hip hop track in the late 1990s, I think. Let me clear my throat. Anyway, good morning, everyone. I am going to have a short discussion on synthetic weed. Of course, you have to build up to that and talk about what weed and marijuana and THC are. So I'm going to attempt to be brief because I have a lot to do today. I was thinking about pushing the stream to Monday night, but Dr. T.S. Johnson asked about it. And hey, why not strike while the iron is hot? I have my fresh mug of coffee here. Let me share this over on Aquateki. Says, first of all, good morning, Andre. Thank you for being here. Tasha Ray, the lovely lady with the salt and pepper sister locks. Thank you for being here, representing for the West Side. And then Aquateki says, cue the baritone sax. Aquateki knows what that track is. That was a hit. When that came out, that was a hit. Folks loved that one. Let me do my usual housekeeping here. Let me make sure it's broadcasting to the YouTube algorithm. This is for teaching purposes only. This is for teaching and educational purposes only. We're not encouraging anyone here to consume or abuse anything. This is a science talk. Let me share this over on my original channel in case folks want to come and listen to this. Everybody has some sort of exposure to this topic. All right, let me like that over there. Let's see, I'm doing this now on, and my plan is to be brief. I woke up later this morning than I wanted to. And when you wake up later, everything gets started later. All right. Please, everyone, if you have comments or thoughts throughout this, I'm sure this is going to jog a lot of people's memories of marijuana or reefer or the bud or chronic or whatever you want to call it. I'm sure this is going to jog a lot of people's memories. And yeah, let me know what you think there in the chat as we go through this. Okay, let me play my intro. I'm going back to the elements discussion with the lovely and the great and the wise Miss Cheryl Pons. And we're going back to the elements here. Let me get rid of this. Go away. Come on, street. There. Okay. All right. I will see you shortly.
So Anwar, I see you have the periodic tables on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that all about? Why are you walking around with a chemistry chart on your chest?
Well, Cheryl, so this channel is a STEM channel. So when I was conceiving of it and figuring out how to grow it, I figured I should have some T-shirts to go with it. So the periodic table is critical to most of the scientific fields.
Welcome to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. Science and technology are all around us all of the time, and there are always science and technology stories to tell. There are always science and technology stories to tell. That is a bit of an understatement. Everyone, give me 1 second here, and then I promise that I'm going to jump right in. All right. So today's topic, please smash that like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing, and check back to see if you are subbed to the channel. I feel like sometimes you hear rumors of this, that of YouTube unsubscribing people. This channel, well, it's science, and I think depending upon which science you're talking about and which angle you're coming from, I think sometimes there's an effort to control certain messages. So right now, this channel is at 1,292. That means I need eight more subs to get to 1,300. So help push me to 1,300 on this channel. Man of Tomorrow. Yeah, I'm going to end with this. He says, thank you for being here, Man of Tomorrow. Want to stay in your good graces. He says synthetic weed is a bad idea. Yeah, so Dr. T.S. Johnson, this was so far off my radar. I don't think about, aside from people in my social circle partaking in this. I think you have the vapes now, and some people traditionally roll up their little back in the day, I saw folks from my mom's generation, they do the little white joints, you know, and then in my generation it was the blunts, you know, the brown. You get the cigar, you slice it open, empty out the tobacco, put the weed in, roll it up, just like smoking on Friday. There's so many. I was thinking there are so many pop culture references to this. I'm thinking about Smokey from Friday. I think Cypress Hill did a song on this. Everybody, this was Dave Chappelle was in that comedy. Was it Half Baked? So this weed is everywhere. It's a part of it's part of Americana. When President Bill Clinton ran that first time, his big line was, "I smoked, but I didn't inhale." I think President Obama said a similar thing when he was running for president the first time. And this is just a part of pop culture and our families. I'm thinking about and I'm gonna move on. I'm thinking about my auntie Adele referring to it as reefer. so many names for this thing: reefer, bud, the sticky icky. And I'm thinking about my Uncle David one night. Shout out to my Uncle David, hanging out with him and riding around Atlanta, and him asking me as he's, you know, driving around and preparing his the devil's lettuce. Andre says the devil's lettuce. Yep. And me and my Uncle David are driving around the Atlanta late at night, and he's preparing his goodies. And I remember him asking me, do you partake? Do you smoke? And I was like, well, no, I don't really want any. And he looks at me and he's driving and multitasking. He says, well, I didn't ask you if you wanted any. I just asked if you smoked. So he wasn't offering it to me. He just wanted to know if I did it. And the thing is, the funny thing is that this never did anything for me. The only thing this thing did for me, and I don't do this now, but as a teen and then trying it throughout my 20s, as you know, other people were partaking, it never did anything for me. It made me cough. You know, it made me tired. It made me cough and it made me tired. But there are a lot of people who this was they really enjoyed partaking in cannabis. Yeah, so maybe I was doing something wrong. Some people, it made some people relax. I think it made some people paranoid. But it never did anything for me. And so now I think what you have chewables and brownies and all kinds of things. And now I think it's legal in some states. When I was growing up, it was illegal, and it's big business now. It's very big business now. You guys keep sounding off there in the chat. If you want to donate something to the channel, if something resonates with you, that is here. Okay, so Dr. Tiasan Johnson. Dr. Tiasan Johnson, I think everybody in the chat knows who Dr. Tiasan Johnson is. He is a Black masculinist, and he advocates for Black boys and Black men in particular. And we've had some powerful discussions over on my original channel and over on my entertainment and media channel. And we're supposed to huddle up again for Black History Month for something else. But he said, hey, Dr. Dunbar, you have a background in the biological sciences. Do you know anything about synthetic weed? I've heard reports that it's causing young Black males to commit criminal offenses. I'll just say that. And so I said, well, Dr. Johnson, no, I don't know a lot about that, but I will do some research on it and I'll see what I could find. So to date, I haven't found anything on the effects of synthetic weed on young Black men in particular. I'll keep looking, but I thought but I did find things about synthetic weed. And then I did find some things about some of the side effects of it. And there seems to be something regarding the zombification of people. So it is having some sort of adverse effect on people in general. So it's plausible that it could, if people become addicted to it, that you would see what you normally see. And that's that some people would resort to crime or robbing or theft to get the funds they need to continue their habit. So I'm gonna read that at the end about the zombification of people, but this is a science channel, so we have to start with the basics regarding what it is and how it works. So I'm going to sprint through this. I'm going to try to be brief, and then I'm going to wrap this stream up. Let's see. Aquateki says this is in response to MOT's comment. Synthetic weed is a bad idea. MOT, if you're still here, you should let us know why you think that is. Aquateki says, I don't disagree, MOT. Andre says, synthetic weed is a Gen Z thing, in my opinion, so there's something generational about this. The Devil's Lettuce, that's another nickname for marijuana or reefer. Shout out to my auntie Adele. Sup, Andre? Aquateki, Tasha says, I tried an edible, started hallucinating and ended up in the ER. Okay, so what is this? So everybody is familiar. We're going to do a slideshow here. Everybody is familiar with cannabis. And there was an MC from the 90s who actually, that was his name, Cannabis. And I think LL Cool J in a diss record used that in a hook. So everybody's familiar with cannabis. That's it right there. Again, pop culture. We've seen this in movies. We've seen criminals growing this stuff, storing it in bags, police busting the criminals and taking the bags of weed to the police station. The scientific name for marijuana is Cannabis sativa. So Cannabis sativa, this is where it comes from. Cannabis sativa. All right. So the active ingredient in Cannabis sativa is tetrahydrocannabiol. Tetrahydrocannabiol. Okay. So what this does, it's most known for people. Well, it's most known for being smoked, but they also started creating edibles for it so people could eat these things and ingest it that way. So it works on the brain. There are multiple regions of the brain, and there are regions of the brain that control different things. Okay. So in terms of drugs, by the way, the Department of Pharmacology at University of Michigan, they're not endorsing this talk. So if this ever gets back, they're not a part of this. This is me doing this, but I thought I would wear this shirt because I'm talking about pharmacology. So for every drug, whether it's a therapeutic drug or a drug of abuse or a narcotic, there is a specific drug target. Every drug has a target. All right. So the brain has regions. The brain, the cell type, our bodies are made up of different cell types in terms of depending upon which tissue you're talking about. So the brain is made up of billions and billions of neurons. So you have a cell body, you have an axon, you have oligodendrocytes, nodes of Ranvier, and you have an axonal terminal, right? So you have billions and billions of these neurons, and they're all arranged in these complex processes. And so they're arranged so that you have a presynaptic neuron and a postsynaptic neuron, all right? So one's affecting the other. And so you have something called a synapse. This is review. I've talked about this here. So I'm going to go to my opioid receptor cartoon here. I did some content on fentanyl. So your presynaptic terminal, that's there. It's a busy cartoon. Basically, what I want you guys to see is that when that presynaptic terminal gets excited, it empties out a neurotransmitter into that synaptic cleft. That neurotransmitter binds a receptor on the postsynaptic cleft, and that excites that postsynaptic terminal. So you have the neurotransmitter coming out, binding the postsynaptic terminal, and then you have your function. Okay. Now, that's the case for a lot of drugs, whether we're talking about cocaine. A lot of drugs function this way. So fentanyl, your opioids, they function through these mechanisms. Cocaine functions through this type of mechanism. Selective. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, they function through these pathways. Okay. And it turns out that THC functions this way as well. Okay. Through your synaptic clefts and binding to a receptor and impacting a neurotransmitter, either emptying out into the cleft or not emptying out. So most drugs work either by accentuating that type of thing, causing more neurotransmitter to come out, or they function through inhibiting that process somehow, or blockading the binding of that neurotransmitter to the receptor on the postsynaptic terminal. I'm trying to keep this brief so as not to confuse everybody. So that's what it is. That's how it works when you smoke it or you eat it. That's what it is, and that's how that works. I feel like I might have left something out. That always happens. Okay, so I have a bunch of things to show you all. I'm going to sprint through these, and then my intention is to wrap up. Oh, Slick Rick has entered the building. He says, people have dropped dead from smoking synthetic, and many have ended up in the emergency room. So that gets to another point. I mentioned pop culture. So on Friday, I'm sure everyone there in the chat has seen the classic film Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. One of the things I remember a relative telling me this, you have to be careful of, is what people are putting in it. So you might think that, and that was the joke in Friday, is that Smokey was bragging about how much of an expert he was in terms of smoking, and then Hector, he said when he smoked it, he felt something different. What happened, and he said, "What is this?" And Hector said, "It's angel dust." So you always had to be careful of what people were putting into it. All right. All right. Let's see. So this is a fact sheet. I pulled a bunch of materials. This is a fact sheet on marijuana. All right. I'm going to read that first paragraph. Marijuana. Make sure you all could see that. I like this view better. Marijuana is a mind-altering psychoactive drug produced by the cannabis sativa plant. Marijuana has over 480 constituents. THC, delta 9 tetrahydrocannabiol, is believed to be the main ingredient that produces the psychoactive effect. I'll read the second one. Let's see. Marijuana is grown in the United States, Canada, Mexico, South America, the Caribbean, and Asia. It can be cultivated in both outdoor and indoor settings. I'm going to read one more. What are the common street names for marijuana? All right. Aunt Mary, BC Bud, Blunts, Boom, Chronic. That's right. Dr. Dre made that classic record named after marijuana. Death Row, Snoop, that was what that record and that whole era was centered around. It was smoking weed. All right. The Chronic, dope, gangsta, ganja, grass, hash, herb, hydro, Indo. You said this was Indo. This is more like outdo. That's from Friday. Smokey didn't like that when Craig said that. Joint, Kiff, Mary Jane, Moda, Pot, Reefer, Sinsemella, Skunk, Smoke, Weed, and Yerba. All right, I'm going to stop that there. You guys can look that up if you want to find this. I think this is linked. It's a PDF, so it's linked to a folder in my PC. So I can't share this with you right now. Okay, so that's a quick crash course on that. These references are below in the description box unless YouTube poaches them out, which they will do if they think they're spam. This is from Oxford Academic and the journal Brain. So I'm going to read the first part of this abstract. The active compound in herbal cannabis, 9-delta tetrahydrocannabinol, exerts all of its known central effects through the CB1 cannabinoid receptor. Okay, research on cannabinoid mechanisms has been facilitated by the availability of selective antagonists acting on the CB1 receptors and the generation of CB1 receptor knockout mice. Okay, this is below if you guys want to read some more about it. Long story short, they've done a lot of experiments on this. This drug, it's been everywhere. Now it's legalized in certain states. So there's been a lot of incentive to know what this compound does and how it works. But that's the receptor it works through. So I was telling you all about presynaptic and postsynaptic terminals and synaptic clefts. So this link is also, I think it's a part of this abstract. This link, let's see, let me put these in order. Please smash that like button if you haven't. Please keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. This link is below in the description box. It's from Frontiers. It's entitled Cannabinoid Receptors in the Central Nervous System, Their Signaling and Roles in Disease. If you guys want to get down into the meat and potatoes of the biochemistry and how these things work, this link is below. But I pulled this for this cartoon here so I could show it to you all. So this figure says differential cannabinoid receptor signaling modalities can impact neuromodulation in health and in specific ways. So this is a blown up version of that cartoon. In science, diagrams are very, very important, especially for the layperson. So once again, you have a presynaptic terminal there. Look, if you look up at A, and then you have a postsynaptic terminal, right? And so you have your CB1 receptor there. And so what happens is the THC gets in there, it gets absorbed into your central nervous system, and then it binds that receptor, and then that causes an influx of calcium, an efflux of potassium, and it causes your neurotransmitter to empty out into the synaptic cleft and bind the postsynaptic, bind a receptor on the postsynaptic membrane there, and that causes the effect. All right. What's also interesting here is you could see that it's that receptor is a G protein coupled receptor, and for most receptors in the brain, if they get bound too much, those receptors will internalize, and that's what causes patients to, or users to, become sensitized to the drug. The body has a way of adapting to too much stimulation, and that's why users of the drug eventually, if they abuse it, they need more, because the body becomes adapted to the effects of that drug. But I just wanted to show you all how these things work. All right. If you want to get more into the weeds of how these things work, that link is below. Okay. So let's talk about the zombification of patients and people. Okay. So let's talk about synthetic weed. So for many drugs and compounds are found naturally. They're found naturally. They're found in nature. That goes for drugs. That goes for industrial chemicals like pesticides. Okay, many things are found in nature. And then in terms of industry, part of what industry does, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry or the chemical industry, scientists figure out how to make forms of these natural compounds synthetically, so you can mass produce them and use them for other purposes. So that's where, hence the name synthetic weed. They figured out the structure, and they figured out how to produce molecules that will exert the similar effect, but synthetically. Okay, so let me read about this, and then I'm going to wrap the stream up. I hope I haven't forgotten anything. Please continue letting me know what you think there in the chat. I'm going to read this one. It's a short read, and this one comes from okay. There's a picture of a redheaded woman there. Dr. Tia-San Johnson asked me about the effects on Black men. So just, even though there's a redheaded Caucasian woman there, shout out to my father, Caucasian, think about effects on everybody. So this was written on February 11th, 2020. So this was just prior to COVID. And this is from the Ranch, Pennsylvania, which is a rehab organization or facility. I'm going to blow this up for myself. So I can imagine if this is making people, if there's a zombification effect, then I imagine it could do things like make people rob. It can make people rob other people and resort to crime and other nefarious activities. All right. Is synthetic pot really turning people into zombies? You may have seen footage and reports of users staggering around with their eyes rolled back and sounding as if a demon possesses them. You might think it's some audition for an episode of The Walking Dead. Police have described users of synthetic weed, also known as Spice, K2, Joker, Black Mamba, Kush, and Chronic, among other names, as half dead. When paramedics who pluck them off the streets and get them to emergency rooms. Doctors say many of these patients are in the advanced stages of delirium and have to be revived. One young man A 19-year-old Connor Eckert never made it out of the hospital. The California youth slipped into a coma and died after smoking just one hit of the drug. Synthetic pot overdoses are increasing nationwide, says officials with the U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC. Officials see the largest increases in the Northeast, New York City area. The New York City area primarily drives this with overdoses. For example, in Brooklyn, hospitals took in 33 people after a mass overdose of K2. Other examples include a man high on synthetic pot attempted to surf on top of a New York City subway car and died when he smashed his head on an overhead beam. In Pennsylvania, authorities found synthetic weed in the residence of a woman accused of killing her 3-year-old daughter. When officials arrived at the property, the woman was naked and hugging a tree. The most recent mass overdose occurred in Los Angeles in late August. 32 people were hospitalized after smoking what authorities believed to have been spice. All right. Do you all have any experience with this stuff, or do you know anyone who has tried these substances? Let me know what you think there in the chat. All right. This is a short piece, so I'm almost done. What is synthetic marijuana? So we know what the natural compound is. What is synthetic marijuana? Designed to mimic the effects of tetrahydrocannabinol, the active ingredient in natural marijuana, the artificial substance has far more powerful effects. Sounds eerily similar to fentanyl, right? Right? So fentanyl is the most potent opiate. So when you make something artificially, you can increase its properties and its potency. It was first seen in the United States in 2008. What K2 does is puts you in a delusional world. Have your mind spinning, said a man who went only by Andrew in an interview with CBS News. It's mind altering. Synthetic pot is a mixture of dried herbs and even lawn clippings sprayed with chemicals, ground up and either eaten or smoked. Long available in gas stations, corner stores, and head shops. This unregulated, unpredictable chemical substance is marketed as a legal high. So regulated. So regulated means that the government is not analyzing what's in it. If you guys want to read more, well, I'll get to that. Let me cue this up right now so I know to show it to you when I'm finished. Whenever you guys see the term unregulated, that means that it has not been vetted by the FDA. All right, where is it? Regulatory science. All right, there it is. All right. So whoever's making this stuff is making it and selling it. They've gotten some sort of pass to legally sell it, but the government's not vetting it before it goes out to the public. All right. Long available in gas stations, corner stores, and head shops. This unregulated, unpredictable chemical substance is marketed as a legal high. Although authorities have made it against the law to sell, buy, or possess many of these chemicals, manufacturers sidestep the regulations by constantly changing the chemical makeup for their mixtures. Easy access, parentheses, a hit costs as little as $1, and the belief that synthetic pot is natural and therefore harmless are said to have contributed to its popularity. Most people aren't aware that the effects are unlike marijuana. Thus, repeated use is uncommon. Experts say a large part of the appeal of synthetic pot is that standard drug screens won't pick it up. For that reason, active military personnel, people on parole, professional athletes, and those in treatment for substance use disorders are among the earliest reported users of fake weed. Its low cost has made the drug particularly appealing to the homeless population. Okay, here we go. How does synthetic pot affect the brain? Synthetic cannabinoids, the main active ingredient in synthetic pot, get their name from their action on the cannabinoid receptors in the brain. They bind the same brain cell receptors as delta 9 tetrahydrocannabinol, the mind-altering ingredient found in plant-based marijuana, but have much stronger effect. In neurospeak, THC is a partial agonist. Synthetic cannabinoids are full agonists. This makes a big difference because a full agonist elicits a maximum response at that receptor. No amount of THC can have such an effect. Natural THC, I think that's what that means, natural THC. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, or NIDA, users of the drug can experience anxiety and agitation, nausea and vomiting, high blood pressure, shaking and seizures, hallucinations and paranoia, and they may act violently. All right. So I'm going to read, this is almost done. I'm going to take us back to our cartoon. So this just introduced two important pharmacology and toxicology vocabulary words, agonist and antagonist. I'm going to bring up our cartoon once more. So a molecule can either be an agonist. Let me slow down and enunciate here. A molecule can either be an agonist, which means it binds that receptor and it activates it, right? So natural THC is a partial agonist. So when it binds that receptor on the postsynaptic neuron and it partially activates it, what that was saying was that a full agonist binds it and activates it 100%. So it's more potent. It's got more punch. All right. So an antagonist, what it does, just for the sake of this discussion, it blocks it. So the natural agonist cannot bind. So you're either binding it and activating the receptor in the pathway, or you're blockading it. So nothing can bind it and activate it. Right. So think about this cartoon once again. And there's your CB1 receptor right there. There's your CB1 receptor right there. So that's where it binds. All right, let me go back so I can finish this up. We are at 40 minutes. And I'm going to read your comments when I'm finished. Where did synthetic pot originate? It wasn't by accident. In the 1990s, Clemson University chemistry professor John W. Huffman created many of the chemicals used in spice. Huffman was researching the effects of cannabinoids on multiple sclerosis, AIDS, and chemotherapy with a grant from NIDA. When his work was published, the method and ingredients Huffman used to make the compounds, including JWH18, note his initials in the name, became public. Soon marijuana users began spraying them onto dried plant material. Huffman's work is how it all started. Marilyn Hustis, a senior investigator at NIDA, told the Washington Post, this is how it started. And it's a very sad thing that it's happened. There are now off and running. John's very distraught that this has all happened. Synthetic pot is highly addictive. People trying to quit may experience the following withdrawal symptoms: headaches, anxiety, depression, irritability, hallucinations, and paranoia. Okay, so a couple of things there. Yeah, so people, I do recall people looking to use marijuana and weed for medicinal purposes. I think, was it Dr. Cosby? I think he was a well-known person for using it. I'm thinking someone in pop culture was using it, was really outspoken for it being used for medicinal purposes. Some people have used it for, I think, glaucoma. Some cancer patients have used it, I think. So while it's been, for a while it's been thought of as a drug of abuse, it's also been used for medicinal purposes. Okay. The rest of this is a plug for this rehab center. I'm not going to read all this. This says getting help at the Ranch, PA. So if you guys want to read that, this link is in the description box. But thank you to the Ranch, PA for creating this summary of synthetic pot. And I think thinking about some of those side effects, if you think about some of the things that Dr. Tiesan Johnson was concerned about, I could see some of those side effects translating into what he was talking about, because we know that when people get addicted to things and when they need to continue to feed their habit and supply their habit, and when they run out of money to do that, well, they're going to go get the money from somewhere, or they're going to resort to something that's going to allow them to continue their consumption of that drug. Okay. A lot of I was thinking about there was a basketball player from my home city of Buffalo named Cliff Robinson. Played for the Portland Trail Blazers. Before that, he played at UConn. And in the 90s, there were a number of NBA players who were battling the NBA for their right to use marijuana, and Cliff was one of them. And many of them got in trouble. Many players have been suspended for using marijuana. But I think his nickname, he had two nicknames, Uncle Cliffy, and then I think he turned that into, he created a business called Uncle Spliffy before he died. So just a little side note there. So that's what I've got, everyone. Synthetic weed. So I don't have a lot of experience with this, but from a pharmacology and toxicology background and from a societal perspective, it seems to be causing a lot of trouble. So this was for Dr. Tiesan Johnson. I'm going to send him this link once I wrap this up, and if he wants me to come over to his channel and talk about it some more, I'll gladly do so. Let's see. I'm going to read some of the comments here, then I'm going to wrap the stream up. Slick Rick says, people have dropped dead from smoking synthetic weed, and many have ended up in the emergency room. Andre says it's legal nationwide in Canada. I don't know if you're referring to natural THC or synthetic weed. And a lot of people are looking to, in the legal states, a lot of people are looking to get into this business. So apparently this is a very, very lucrative enterprise if you can get into it, the marijuana industry. And I think hemp is being mixed with it. I'm not familiar with hemp, but it's a very lucrative business if you can get in. A lot of people are looking to get in right now while they still can. Aquateki says, all the more reason not to do drugs. Yep, agree. He says, nope, as I stated earlier, this is Zoomer stuff for the most part. So Andre's making the argument that it's specific to the Zoomer generation and beyond. Yeah, and the Zoomer generation, they're based upon the world they're coming of age in, they're not a particularly happy generation. I mean, is any generation happy? But they're facing a lot of unique challenges, as every generation does. Tasha says, it was one and done for me, never again. And that was just an edible piece of chocolate. Please hit the like button if you just came in. I'm wrapping this up. Aquateki says, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't consume any illicit substances, regulated or otherwise. We're going to come back to that, regulated. Thank you, Aquateki, for that. He says, I like to keep my wits about me at all times. Yeah, I don't want to become dependent upon any substance. I never wanted to become dependent on anything. Slick Rick says, it's mostly a millennial drug because it came out amongst their age group. Andre says, synthetic pot is natural. How dumb can people be? Slick Rick says, smoking synthetic seems to be like smoking fry back in the day. Andre says, it makes sense now that people are having these bad side effects. You said that synthetic weed has a higher potency. I'm also seeing why they would even bother with that over natural weed. Andre says CBD is the only recognized form of cannabis for medicinal purposes in Canada by doctors. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the main entities that prevents marijuana from being legal nationwide. Slick Rick says, Andre, it depends on what area you're in. The Cali chronic is strong as hell. And then Andre, he was referring to natural THC. He says, thanks for the content. I just sent a PayPal. Andre, much appreciated. I appreciate that. Everyone, so regulated. I'm pretty sure everyone here knows what regulated means, but when you're talking about regulated substances, that means the government has processes in place for evaluating the safety of that particular product in question. If you want to read some more about it, I wrote a blog post about it several years ago. This is called A Look at STEM. What is regulatory science? So there are agencies and offices within the federal and state governments that work to determine the safety of chemicals and products that are sold and released to the general public. So this link is not in the description box yet. I'm going to put it there, but I will drop it here in the chat. And I think that concludes today's program. So I will definitely send this to Dr. Johnson so that he knows that I did this, or that I at least attempted to address that question. MostFet, thank you for your support and your comments over on this platform. Science topics are not always the most sexy for the general public, so I appreciate any participation I get over here. MostFet99 says, the creator and mother nature created cannabis. Before we got here, synthetic weed was created by man. Think about it. And that was of course, there were so many jokes in Friday, the original Friday. And I think the original Friday was the best out of all of them. But that was one of the things Smokey told Craig when he was trying to get Craig to partake. And Craig said, I drink, I don't get high. He said, weed is from the earth. God put this here for you and me. So yeah, so it's a natural substance, arguably. Well, and then the argument could be made, cocaine Cocaine is a natural substance. And opioids are natural substances. And then a rhetorical question is, even though they're natural substances, should we be using and partaking in them just because God put them here? Should we be using them? That's a rhetorical question. Andre says, I always liked science. That's why I asked for your channel. Well, I appreciate you being here. Yeah, everyone, if you think someone can benefit from this, please share this out. And once again, if you don't see these things going live, the sub count, it's gone up, but sometimes it bleeds down. I don't know why, but that happens sometimes. So please make sure that you're still subbed. And if you think someone could benefit from this, please share this out. All right, everyone, I have some other things to do today, so I wanted to squeeze this in. And so look out for the next one. And thank you to everyone who has supported the channel. And thank you to those who donated. Please consider signing up for the readers. For the readers out there. I'm working on publishing part 1 of my book. And I blog and I write. So please consider joining my newsletter. There's a 2-paragraph greeting there. And there's a subscription button there at the bottom. You just click that and you are a part of the group. And yeah, everyone, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Mosfet says, enjoy your weekend, everyone. And I will talk to you later. And if someone offers you something, be mindful of what's in it. Aquateki, thank you for the generous Cash App.
Where'd that come from?
That's my salute to Aquateki. You know, when you for those who aren't used to YouTubing and live streaming, when you have loyal subs who come back and who donate and who participate in the streams, you want to reward them. So sometimes you give them their special salutes and greetings and nods. Aquateki's avatar is Jazz from the Transformers. So that was a popular cartoon in the 1980s. So I made up some drops for Aquateki. I'll play it one more time.
Where'd that come from?
That was from the 1986 Transformers, the movie, when Unicron showed up to Moonbase 1 and Moonbase 2, and then Cybertron. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And if you're watching on the playback, please let me know if you have any comments in the description box below. So yeah, like, share, and subscribe. All right, everyone. This is Big Discussions 76 Science and Technology. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and I am signing off. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you all the next time. Bye-bye.